our assistant today, Sophia.
Yeah, it's good to see you all. I am a library aide here at the library, so I'm not like official or anything, but I shelve all the books and help you all with your questions and everything like that. If you have any questions about the library or you want to get a library card or anything before, during, or after the tour, you can just ask me and I can get you set up. But otherwise, we are here for the Millionaires Row Historical Walking Tour, led by Ken Ballinger, who is the president of the Miamisburg Historical Society. So we'll be taking a walk around all the big fancy houses here in Miamisburg. If you don't know the history, you'll learn the history.
We're going to be going down Millionaires Row. Why is it called Millionaires Row? Because it's a big row of houses where millionaires live. Yeah, it's not that clever. Yeah. As I've said, we're very deliberate in what we call things here in Miamisburg. Linden Avenue used to be called Bridge Street because if you went that way, you went across the bridge. You know, so we'll talk about a few more of those things today. We're going to start here. We're going to go down to 2nd Street, where Trinity Church is. We're going to come back on the other side of the street all the way back up to this house across the street, which has been beautifully renovated in the last several years. Any questions so far? Good. Okay, so this is the first of our 2025 walking tour season. We do 5 walking tours. We do this one here on Millionaires Row. We do historic Main Street. We do South 2nd Street, which even though it's only 2 blocks, there's a lot of Miamisburg history on those 2 blocks. We do North Miamisburg, which is that direction, where it's sort of like a second Millionaires Row, as well as some interesting, funky Miamisburg stories. And then finally, our one of our big tours is Hillgrove Cemetery, which is down Central Avenue at 10th Street. Unlike the ghost people, we go at 10:30 in the morning, so we're not doing any paranormal stuff. So well, it closes at dark, so I don't think they're allowed to do that. But we'll be there during the day, so we'll probably be safe from any of our ancestors getting angry at us. All right, so we do these multiple times during the year. If you look at our website, historicalmiamisburg.org, you can scroll down the page where it says guided walking tours, click on that, and you can make a reservation. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to make a reservation, but at the very least, you can see what the dates are. How many of you, this is your first walking tour with us in Miamisburg? Wow, great. Seriously, Greg?
Yeah.
Wow, where have you been?
For the last 50 years, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you've been busy. If you don't know, Greg Powell here has assisted in not only organizing but also facilitating a lot of our bigger programs that we've done in the last couple of years. And started out with, is it your grandfather?
Great uncle.
Great uncle, who was Ralph Harrell, who was, don't give it away, the very first Bozo the Clown from right here in Miamisburg.
Oh, wow.
And there have been several Bozos since, anyway, so. Yeah, so we had a really nice program. His family came in, Bozo's family, and that was really fun. We had another program for Hobby Kinderdine, who was pro football player, played for the Dayton Triangles, scored the first extra point in an NFL game. He kicked the first extra point from right here in Miamisburg. And then finally, we had a very big exhibit for the Korn Racing family. That's K-O-R-N. And we have a NASCAR in our right in our display area now for the next couple of years. So if you haven't seen that yet, come on in and check it out. As well as all of our other displays in 10,000 square feet of display area. So yeah, we're a little proud of what we have for a town of this size. Sure, you can go to Carolina, it's been a fortune, but you can come to Miamisburg for free. How many of you are library card holders? How much does it cost to get a library card now?
Say that again.
Yeah, it's free.
It's free. Come on, everybody. Let's get a library card. All right. Anything else before we hit the road? All right. Well, I think we've had the correct amount of ado, so let us get up and head out to the sidewalk. Where we're standing right now was actually the site of the high school for many years, from 1920 until, when did that get torn down?
70s.
Sometime, yeah, there you go, specific, 70s. So anyway, the library got this property when they moved from where they were on 5th Street. So we're on Millionaires Row, which is the row of houses where all the millionaires live. So our first house is actually right next door to this building. This was the home of Michael Cassidy, who was a judge, and the house was built in 1854. This used to be the only home that was in this block right here. This would have been the outskirts of town at the time. As a matter of fact, everything from here on was cow pasture. He was a Civil War veteran and was mayor of Miamisburg. Actually, his son was. And then this lot was sold to Abel Hoover, which is one of the big names of Miamisburg. And he started the, I never say this the right way. Okay, Hoover and Gamble, because he started it with William Gamble. Really clever, right? And they made reaper and mowing machines. One of the things they did, well, I'll show you where the factory is. It's down the block a little bit. Okay, there.
That's got to be the shortest.
We got the train out of the way. Now, what's going to happen? I should have brought this up sooner. There's going to be the guy in the old Ford pickup that's missing the muffler. He's going to go by right when I'm saying something important. And or it's going to be the Harley guys who are out riding in the sunshine. Okay, so I'm just letting you know. And if you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll shout louder. When I bring the bullhorn with me, I forget to use it, or I accidentally hit the alarm, or one time I pushed the button and the batteries fell out, so it's too much for me to figure out all at once while speaking. Anyway, I will show you where the factory was. Hoover got the permission. He didn't invent the machine, but he got permission to make the Excelsior reaping machine, which was a machine that wound crops with twine instead of with wire. And since there were big farms in this area, that was a very successful business. And not only that, but there was also a twine and cordage business that was here in town, and also there was another factory across the river. So all these companies worked in conjunction. We had the machine that wound the twine, we had the other company that made the twine, we had tobacco farms across the river, and all off into that area over there in Jefferson Township. And so you wouldn't think of it, but this was actually a big area for growing tobacco for many years because the ground was so fertile. Now that's cigar and pipe tobacco. Cigarette tobacco, I say this every year. All those years I smoked, I had no idea. I just thought it was a finer grind of tobacco. No, can't grow cigarette tobacco here. That's the stuff that's grown more down in Virginia and South Carolina and that. But here we could grow pipe tobacco and cigar tobacco, and there were cigar factories here for many, many years that employed hundreds of people, so it was a big business. And a lot of our people we're going to talk about today either were doctors, attorneys, something like that, maybe got into the tobacco business, maybe got into real estate, but there's kind of a continuous thread of how do you become a millionaire in Miamisburg? One, you marry, someone's daughter, and then you go into that business, and then you go into real estate, and there's a narrative here in our little book, okay? Questions about Judge Cassidy. This property, as you can see, was this whole corner, so that's why the iron gate was all the way down. This gate was for the property. Probably not back to 1854, but quite old. Now, I believe the carriage house used to go with this property, but now it's a separate property that has a driveway at this street.
Ken, is there a swimming pool here or something?
I'm going to get to the swimming pool. Yes, you're so close. You could probably smell the chlorine from here. Let's go down one house. William Scheibel originally bought this house and then had this house built. Now he had a toy factory. There was a toy factory here in Miamisburg, but his was in Dayton. Now, one of the reasons why he got set up in business is if you're driving, as you're going back out Central Avenue toward the highway, on the right side of the street, I believe it's at the corner of 8th Street or 9th Street, you will see there's a big house that has the turret in one corner. It's a big, beautiful brick home. That was his father-in-law. So once again, you know, obviously he married well, exactly. So his toy business obviously did pretty well. Now, this has been a bed and breakfast off and on for several years. Unfortunately, it's not now. So I think if we all pool our money, we can reopen it. Who's with me?
What's going on with it now? Is it just
We're doing a walking tour. Other than that, I don't think anything's going on with it. It is for sale. I believe it is. We don't have any real estate people with us, do we? Well, anyway, if you're looking for a business opportunity, right here behind me. Now, the swimming pool. The family had a small pool that was here in the front yard. But the police, and I believe the school, asked the family to take this pool out because the schools were right here. Kids coming from here, or who are we kidding? They probably came from all around. And could they resist the temptation for long to jump in this pool on their way to or from school? So as they say they took it out for safety concerns. I think they took it out because the kids were soaking wet when they got to school. That's what I think. But anyway, the pool was here in the front yard. Questions about pools or beautiful Tudor-style homes? I have not much, but well, yes. Now, if this is building codes are only a 20th century invention. Before then, you were just kind of on your own.
Yeah.
You know, do we have any architect designs? Very few. Before 1940. Now, this house, I have been in it when it was when the Buttonwood Inn opened up. Beautiful inside. I mean, 3 floors, just plenty of space, plus a full basement. There was a bar down there. They had free drinks and everything. It was a wonderful afternoon. Now, does anyone know why it was called the Buttonwood Inn? Yes. No one ever answers that question. Excellent. Buttonwood is a sycamore tree, which there are plenty of them around town. So it was called the Buttonwood because there were probably more sycamore trees on the property or in the area. And everyone says, ooh. Okay, questions about the Shiloh? Toy people. They were in the toy business, they weren't toy people. Okay, let's go down the street to 439 and talk about Charles Bookwalter. This is the home of Daniel Bookwalter, who built this house in 1865. He was, his father was the owner of the Bookwalter Hub and Spoke Factory. So once again, we had a hub and spoke factory because we had a very big carriage business and buggy business here in Miamisburg, which we talk more about in our North Miamisburg tour. So north again is this direction. And we had the Kaufman Buggy Factory was here for 50 years, and then the Enterprise Carriage Company was here for many years. And it seems kind of quaint now, but I mean, they were big, big businesses at the time with hundreds of employees and good-sized factories. Unfortunately, those factories are gone. Well, the Kaufman being right next to the river and right next to the Sycamore Bridge took a big hit during the 1913 flood, and they never really recovered from that. Plus, there was a fire in one of the showrooms. So they kind of incorporated themselves into Enterprise, and then Enterprise sold off actually to the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers had an airplane factory here and made propellers. Does anybody know what kind of wood they make propellers out of? Spruce? What? It's a kind of oak tree. Does anybody know what kind of oak tree it is? 2 for 2.
I know too much about trees.
Give it up for Sid.
I know.
Give it up for Sophia. Divine wisdom. You know that's what that name means, right? Sophia is wisdom.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. See how those two things fit together?
I saw
Did you get
that.
on film?
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, they made them out of white oak. Now, you will notice, as if you know anything about trees, as you're going through this area, there are not many white oak trees left. Part of the reason is the Wright brothers, and I'm saying the Wright brothers company, not specifically the two Wright brothers, went to every local farmer, every landowner in the area and bought every single white oak tree they could find, except for if you're on 741, which is over by Dayton Mall, 741 South, across the road from the MetLife building, there's a park there, and I can never remember the name of it.
Waldaroo.
Thank you. And that is where the last stand of white oak trees is. The reason being, the owner said, I will give you this park, but don't let those Wright brothers touch those trees.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the only place where you have a bunch of white oak trees.
Well, they were selling them or buying them for a fortune. That's why everybody sold
Yeah,
them. So
of course. So, as it says here, during its peak, Miamisburg manufactured 35,000 sets of wheels in a year. So this is a big business, a big deal. Okay? Now we're back to being a single-family home again. Questions about Brookwalter? Anything?
So when the flood came, how far did it reach out that? How high?
Really, it went to the railroad tracks mostly. I mean, it rained like crazy here as well, and it would have, probably flooded any basements or anything like that, any basements that existed. But the majority of the flood was on the other side of the tracks. Thankfully. Although, comparatively speaking, everyone talks about how much damage was done in Dayton. If you do it statistically and mathematically, Miamisburg took as much of a hit as the city of Dayton. We just had a smaller population, smaller land mass. In fact, there were newspaper headlines around the country that said Miamisburg wiped off the face of the earth, which obviously we weren't, but we were severely damaged. And if you see any of the photos, everybody in the first several blocks of town was ankle deep in river mud and whatever other debris. It's not pure water that comes through in a flood, so it was probably really unpleasant here for several months. The martial law was imposed. It was very, very serious. And we'll talk more about the flood as it occurs to me. Okay, let's go down here to 309 and talk about David Hoover. Just because it's such a nice day and you're the best tour group we've had all year. I want to talk about a bonus house on this tour. And it's here. There's a story with that, but this was the home of Dr. what's his first name? Glenn Snyder. Now, he was an osteopathic physician, practiced medicine here in town for 46 years. He was on the staff of Grandview Hospital, which is downtown in Dayton. He was involved in just about every civic organization in town, the Rotary, the Masonic Lodge, every Masonic group that belonged there. He probably belonged to the Scottish Rite downtown in Dayton. He could have been a Shriner, I'm not really sure. But during his practice, remember, 46 years, he delivered 2,780 babies. So one of our members of our board at the Historical Society said that she's got like 7 siblings, and he said, yeah, he delivered every one of them. So, yeah, so his home was originally on Main Street. Well, no, his house was originally on Central Avenue, where the old post office is, which is the Civic Center now, across the street from the Catholic Church. And he moved the house here, and this is where he had his practice after he was in an office on Main Street. So this is the home of Dr. Snyder. Now, I'll tell you why I'm redeeming myself. You don't want to film this or not.
Oh, I already
I've
know.
done this-
It's already there from last year.
Yeah,
So
well, you can go back and watch the video from last year. I'm going on and on, waving my arms around, sharing all this information, pointing to this house, and you can see where someone walks up to me, and you can't hear what they say, but you see where they're pointing like this. So it is actually this house over here.
yeah.
So did we get that? Can you splice that into last year?
Well, you see, I know because he sewed my finger back on when I was a little kid before I even went to school. I lived right across the lived right across the railroad tracks. Mom chopped it off in some drawer or something. Took me over here. He just sewed it on, gave me a lollipop, sent me home.
So how long did he practice? When did he retire?
Oh, I don't
Back
know.
in the
This-
70s?
Wow.
Yeah, that'd have been the 60s when he did that for me. So, I mean, he just walked across the street, sewed it on. It works. Imagine that.
Yeah, 72. Yeah, exactly. I heard that too.
And you have to practice right there in the house?
Yes.
They take good care of it. They have it all decorated at Christmas. Yes, it was really pretty. And they said on Facebook, come down and
Next year,
Yeah.
next season, I'm doing it. Yeah, I think that's for the neighbor's house. Anyway, so that's our little bonus house, just for this group, never to be done again. Anyway, enough of the sales pitch. Let's go on a little bit further down the street. What? It used to be in a lot worse shape. I really like the sign on the side, in case you would be wondering. I know I had an apartment down here on Lock Street. It was like a block off of the railroad tracks. And the trains coming through would reshift the dishes in the cabinets. I cannot imagine being this close to the tracks because
Oh yeah.
this is a very busy railroad track.
My
And
mom worked at the dental depot. I don't know
Oh.
if you clean people's teeth, but
I don't know how you could go as a patient there. I'm like, no.
I used
No,
to
I
go
don't want
there,
them
but
slipping.
He wouldn't go to Dental Depot.
Actually, I've been
Oh,
thinking about
no.
trying that dental service.
It's so cool because it's still set up like the railroad station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got those benches like
Yeah.
Well, if you're from here, when we were younger, the trains used to fly through 50, 60 miles an hour at least. And they piled up, one time I was younger, it piled up like a pyramid. It was so high with the cars right here. Took out that house right there where the big tree is that they replanted it. But it's hit so many cars, and as kids, we would run down so we could see. Oh yeah.
We were talking about maybe a program would be all the historic train wrecks at Miamisburg because they took out several houses north on Pearl Street and
Then take it, yeah, here.
And carriages were hit right at Central Avenue.
It sounds like you could have a series. It's like you could do one as floods and one
Oh
as
yeah.
train wrecks.
Believe me, we've got more than enough information about the flood.
Okay, so and the family would be in there and
Cat.
we'd hurry up and talk and discuss stuff and hear the bell go off and everybody stop until the train went by. And
As you would
used to
have
a
to.
curb right here and I'd come out and sit on the curb and Grandma always told me don't go beside the railroad track because the train will suck you up. But I didn't, but I just sat here and I'd always watch the tracks. Kind of like, you know, like a split rail.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it was a
But
little
it-
bit
I
on
mean,
one.
it was 6
Wow.
foot off.
I used to live in the house back there.
End up in the middle.
Tore it down since
the,
then.
the accident in '86, like the biggest evacuation.
Oh
That
yeah.
was across the river, thank God.
I mean, I was living in the Netherlands then, and it made newspaper over there. I got the article. It's pretty wild.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that was,
I got that.
that was a big deal. 86.
Oh, you can see the little 1871 over there.
Okay, this is the David Hoover house. We're not really sure when it was built. Says right on the sign there.
Yeah, I know.
Now,
1871.
obviously, David Hoover didn't live here, given that he died in 1870. But his factory, or one of the factories he had, was actually right here down the street. So, very convenient commute to work. And he was one of the people who had the reaper and binder machine business. So he built the machine that you loaded with twine that wrapped the crops. And so that factory has been a number of things. That's where the toy factory was years ago. And the name of the reaping machine that they built here was the Excelsior, and actually 3rd Street used to be called Excelsior Street, which I just was reading this morning. So there's one extra little bonus for today. All right, so Abel and his son-in-law, William Gamble. Now this Hoover family is not the vacuum cleaner family, and the Gamble family we're talking about is not the soap people from Cincinnati. These are different Hoovers, these are different Gambles. But they started the Hoover and Gamble Company, and they patented, or they manufactured the patented twine machine that was the Excelsior. Okay? So, then they sold this house in 1895 to Thomas V. Lyons, who we'll be talking about here in a little bit. And it's been here ever since. Thankfully, it's been, I think it's been cleaned up quite a bit in the last 20 years. In fact, all of Miamisburg has.
Yeah.
How many of you came to Miamisburg, say, 25, 30 years ago? Anybody? Let me tell you, it's good that you're here now, because there was a period of time where it got a little rough, and there was only about, I think, 25% occupancy of the businesses downtown. Now it's like 85%. So when a property is available on Main Street, people want it, because the town is really becoming a go-to place for, well, obviously it's Miamisburg, we have several bars, but also for, there's 2 ice cream places, well, one's a gelato place. We have our movie theater, of course, several little specialty shops, and yes, the ice cream place is very good. There's a guy, an income tax place, Edward Jones is on that street, a couple of coffee places, and of course Ron's Pizzas right there. So definitely a go-to place. Plus we have the Riverfront Park, which took about 25 years to get accomplished. That just formally opened last summer. Riverfront Park, where do you think it is? It's on the riverfront. Welcome to Miamisburg. It is very nice.
It's well
And it
laid
is-
out. It's
It
very
is packed with events all year long, or all summer long.
starting
And
next
then
weekend.
They still have the concert in the street where they close off the corner of Linden Avenue down there just past the light, and they set up a stage right up in the middle of the intersection, and they have music there too. So a lot of stuff going on here in town.
Got to mention the wine shop.
It's right there in front of the wine shop,
He
exactly.
said that'll never go over in Miamisburg, that place.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I know.
Coming up.
We don't always see clearly into the future, do we? Okay, any questions about the Hoovers? Okay, we want to talk about one of the most interesting people in town, Elizabeth Treon, who is right next door. Okay, this is the home of Mrs. Elizabeth Treon, who was the widow, the second widow, well, she was the second wife of Dr. John Treon, whose home was next door. We'll talk about that in a minute. And he was married. Now, unlike nowadays, Dr. Treon was widowed, and so then he met and married Elizabeth. So, and she was widowed. So it wasn't like they got divorced or anything like that. That would be something for the 20th and 21st century. Anyway, Elizabeth Treon, interesting lady. Her first husband, here we go. She was born a weaver. Her first husband was Hezekiah Black. Now, I know you agree with me that we don't have enough people anymore named Hezekiah. So if you're thinking about naming your children or grandchildren, just put that name in the hopper and see if it comes up. But Hezekiah Black was one of the managers of the Miami House Hotel, which is where Jane's on Main is, the wine shop. That used to be a hotel, which all the hotels in town were called houses. So that was the Miami House. And she owned that after his death. And I'm gonna guess he died somewhere in the 1860s, 1870s. And then she, her daughter married a Ritzman, and so she built a building just to the north of that, which was called the Ritzman Addition for many years. And that was actually, he had a clothing store there, and then eventually that was where the first Kroger in Miamisburg was right there in the Ritzman Addition where the donut shop is now. And that was only the 10th Kroger in Ohio. So it was the 10th Kroger in the United States. Kroger was a Cincinnati company. So she had enough money to build that building for her son-in-law. Now, she married John Treon, who came to town with pretty much 50 cents in his pocket, and he still owed money on the horse he rode in on. Sounds like a joke. But he was a surgeon for over 70 years. He lived to be in his 90s. It was amazing. He worked on thyroid issues. That was his specialty. But he traveled a circuit between Ohio, Tennessee, or not Tennessee, but like Ohio, Kentucky, maybe Michigan, traveling around treating different people. And then, as I said, got into real estate. At one time, he owned about 10,000 acres here in town because his house was originally, the first part of this house was built in the 1820s. And this was all just undeveloped land. So he actually owned the land down by where the mound is at one time. So, and this was his second house. This was his in-town house. He had another, his first house was up on Mound Road right next to where the mound facility is. So he did very well for himself, died very, very wealthy. Now Elizabeth here, for some reason, John Treon died in the 1880s, and then this house is from the 1890s. And so, for some reason, unknown to our history so far, she built this house even though she had this one right here. Maybe too many memories, maybe, who knows. Maybe the way the will was set up, whatever.
Maybe she built it for $1.
What?
Maybe she built it for $1 because it said she died in $1.
Could be.
Whatever the Ritzman.
So she built this beautiful house, and at the time of her death, she had an estate of $2 million, which would be about $61 million now. So she was very well off. And for a woman especially, in that time period, that's very unusual. So, did very well for herself. Married well, had the hotel, and then, you know, spent her time with Dr. John. Everyone's looking at us like we're famous or something. Okay, questions about Elizabeth? What? Yeah, that's the attack cat, probably. I think there's a German Shepherd. I've never seen one here, but why take a chance? Greg. If they are historic buildings, yes. But if it's just a home, no. It is, yes.
I haven't seen any signs that say listed on the historic register.
I don't think there are.
Register is usually
They have
snooty.
kind of an informal community down Linden Avenue, especially in that block there where we just were and where we'll be going back. But it's not anything. In fact, I mean, they come in the Historical Society occasionally and say, hey, why don't you put up one of those signs like there are signs around Miamisburg for different communities, Orchard Hill and Belleville Woods and all that. Well, we aren't in charge of that. Yeah, talk to the city. You know, I'm sure they'd be happy to do it.
Now, can they make changes on anything without?
If it's not a historic home, sure. But if it is,
Gorgeous.
oh yeah.
Take-
Even if it's just, I think you can paint.
Look at this work up here.
Well, these were, you know, she had $61 million. She built a nice house.
These are on iron fence.
Okay,
Oh my God.
let us move on to the home of Dr. John Treon, one of the founders of Miamisburg.
His dad's garden in Melbourne.
Well, the gate's locked, we can't go in. As you can see, this picture here, I believe, is from the 1887 lithograph map of Miamisburg. Copies available at the Historical Society on 5th Street. But Treon's house has been here since the 1820s in one version or another. I don't remember which side was the oldest, but it was updated several times as he became more and more prosperous. He didn't have any children himself, but he and his first wife Anna did adopt several children. So they did have some descendants, but not biological descendants. Very interesting house, one of the few mansard roof houses that we have left. Interestingly enough, you see the ironwork there on the very top. That's called a widow's walk. Does anybody know what a widow's walk is? Exactly.
See him up on the East Coast.
You're going on every tour with us. You're great. You're fantastic. It's called a widow's walk because you usually see these in New England, usually somewhere close to the shore, looking out over the ocean, because the widows, or potential widows, if you know anything about sailing prior to the 20th century, it was not very safe. You were in a wooden ship, you were in an unforgiving ocean, and so there was a lot of losses at sea. But the widows or potential widows would be up on the top of the building looking out over the ocean for their spouse to return. Now, I don't know if Elizabeth was looking out on the horse path to see if her husband was riding in, or she was looking down on the canal, or maybe she was supervising to see if the people at the hotel were working hard. I don't know. You can't really see the river from here, so I think it's one of those things where you got the money, you got the iron, throw it up there. And as you can see, there used to be a fence through here, but it has unfortunately been taken down. So Treon was one of the founders of Miamisburg. He and his uncle Peter Treon, who was also a doctor, along with Emmanuel Gebhardt and Jacob Kircher, bought lots, about 90 acres, split them into lots of about a fifth of an acre, and they were down in this area, obviously closer to the river, where the city started. And they sold those lots at an auction in 1818, and that was the founding of Miamisburg. So that's where the city started. So they would have had, nice house. Kircher's house is, well, it was before we moved it. It was on Ferry Street, which is, again, in that old section of Miamisburg, the very oldest section. We talk more about that on the North Miamisburg tour. There's my commercial. And I don't remember the date right now, but it's sometime coming up between now and September. Okay, so one of the founders of the city, thank God the house is still here. Now it is split into apartments, and the section on the back was added on, so that's later on.
Can you get to that section through? Is it connected to this house?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, these are all apartments now, and the owners live here as
That
well.
little one on the back, the one
Yeah.
he added.
Yeah. Yeah, some of that was added, and then I think some of it was added on after that, after Treon had the house. Yeah, beautiful house.
I like when they did that green. It used to be black, I think, and it wasn't as pretty, but the green is
Yeah.
very.
I'm really hoping that the house has taken some damage, as it would in 200 years, but hopefully we can get it, they can restore it a little bit more than they have. Because as you can see even from 1887, it was a beautiful home. All right, let's go on down to the corner here. We'll talk about one of the lions.
Thanks everyone for watching the Millionaires Row Tour in Miamisburg, Ohio, Part 1. Be sure to come back for Part 2. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And we hope to see you next time. And have a great one.